Human pilot crashes into ocean to save islands, but no one knows the Drought hides family betrayal. Welcome to the best sci-fi HFY stories. Please subscribe to the channel to receive more best sheriff's stories. The shuttle screamed through Orr's violet sky, its hull glowing like a falling star. Rowan Pierce gripped the controls, knuckles white, sweat beading on his brow despite the failing life support. Lightning, thick electric blue, forked across the viewport, and the world outside pulsed with bioluminescent storms. The sea below wasn't water, it was liquid light, waves cresting in slow, hypnotic arcs of turquoise and gold. He'd seen oceans before, Earth's, Mars, the methane seas of Titan, but nothing like this. Nothing that breathed. A bolt struck. The shuttle bucked. Alarms wailed. Rowan's teeth rattled as the craft spiraled, engines coughing plasma. "Come on, girl, hold together," he muttered, voice hoarse. The yoke fought him like a living thing. Another flash, closer. The cockpit lit up white. Systems died in a cascade of red warnings. He smelled ozone, burnt wiring, his own fear. Impact. The shuttle hit the sea like a hammer on glass. Water exploded upward in a plume of glowing foam. Rowan's harness snapped tight across his chest, stealing his breath. The world flipped. Sky, sea, sky again, until the craft settled, half submerged, bobbing in the swell. Silence. Just the soft hiss of escaping air, and the low rhythmic thrum beneath the waves. Like a heartbeat, he kicked the hatch. It groaned open. Salt water, warm, alive, poured in. Rowan swam out, lungs burning, and broke the surface. The storm had paused as if listening. Clouds hung low, heavy with light. The sea glowed brighter where his blood trailed from a cut on his forehead. Tiny organisms swirled around him, curious, hungry. Then he saw them, two children, no older than 10, clinging to a shard of coral debris. Their skin shimmered, veins lit from within like fiber optics. One's hair floated in tendrils of soft green light. The other's eyes were wide, luminous gold. They were sinking. A wave curled over them, and the girl reached out, fingers glowing, desperate. Rowan didn't think. He swam. Hard. The water resisted, thick with life, but he pushed through. His hand closed around the boy's wrist, warm, pulsing. The girl grabbed his shoulder. He kicked upward, dragging them both. The sea fought back, tugging like it wanted them. "I've got you," he gasped. "I've got you." They broke the surface together. The children coughed, glowing brighter with panic. Rowan treaded water, one arm around each, scanning for land. There, on the horizon, a silhouette, a city, not built on the sea, but of it. Towers of coral, pink and white, spiraled upward like frozen waves. Bridges of shell and bone arched between them. Lights, soft, organic, flickered in windows. Thalias, his shuttle's dying nav, had called it a refuge. Maybe. He swam. Hours, it felt like. The children grew heavy, their glow dimming. The boy whispered something in a language like wind through shells. Rowan didn't understand, but the tone, gratitude, was clear. When his feet finally scraped sand, he nearly wept. He dragged the kids ashore, collapsing on a beach of crushed pearl and black volcanic glass. The storm returned. Not rain, lightning. It struck the sea in rapid bursts, each flash revealing figures on the ridge above. Dozens, cloaked in woven kelp, faces hidden behind masks of polished shell. They carried spears, coral forged, edges glinting like glass. One stepped forward, taller, voice booming through a carved Kong. "Outsider, you have touched the sacred waters. You have stolen from the sea mother." Rowan raised his hands slow. "I saved them. Your kids." A spear tip pressed against his throat. Cold. Sharp. The children were pulled away, gently but firmly, by masked figures. The girl looked back, eyes wide, glowing, and mouthed something. "Thank you," or "run." They bound his wrists with cords of dried sinew. Rough. Tight. He was hauled upright, legs dragging through the sand. The city loomed closer now, its walls alive with barnacles that pulsed in slow waves. Gates of pearl and iron opened with a groan. Inside, the air was thick, humid, salty, thirsty. No fountains, no rivers, just the faint drip to drip of condensation collected in stone basins. People watched from shadowed doorways. Their skin was pale, almost translucent, lips cracked, eyes sunken. Some carried tiny clay cups, sipping one drop at a time. A child licked dew from a leaf like it was ambrosia. Rowan's mouth went dry, just looking. They dragged him through tiers, lower, middle, upper, each level more desperate than the last. In the lower quarters, people pressed damp cloths to their mouths, wringing out moisture. In the middle, guards rationed water from sealed urns, measuring with crystal spoons. In the upper, he glimpsed it through a grate. A garden, green, wet. A fountain trickled, wasted, into a pool where fish swam lazily. Guards stood watch. No one drank. At the citadel's heart, a plaza of polished shell, a dais. On it, 3 figures in robes of dried seaweed, faces painted with salt crystals. The Council of Brine. The central figure, a woman, ancient, voice like grinding coral, raised a staff. "This off-worlder has defiled the Sea Mother's womb," she intoned. "He has drawn her wrath with his alien blood. The storms will not cease until his life returns to the depths." The crowd murmured. Some wept. Others nodded, fervent. Rowan's guards forced him to his knees. The spear returned to his throat. "Any last words, Skyfallen?" He looked up. The children were there, held at the edge of the crowd. The girl met his eyes. Her glow flickered, weak. He smiled, small. "Tell them, I'm sorry I couldn't save more." The staff lowered. "Execution at dawn, by drowning in the sacred pool. Let the Sea Mother drink deep." The crowd cheered, hoarse, desperate. Rowan was dragged away down spiral stairs of coral bone, into the dark. The children's glow vanished behind him. He didn't struggle, not yet, but as the cell door, carved from a single nautilus shell, closed with a clunk, he heard it again. That low, rhythmic thrum, beneath the city, beneath the sea, like breathing. And for the first time since the crash, Rowan smiled. The cell door scraped open just before dawn's first glow filtered through the shell grates. Rowan blinked against the sudden lantern light, soft, bioluminescent, carried by a woman whose robes hung loose on a frame too thin for comfort. Her eyes, pale as moonlit pearls, flicked over him with something between curiosity and pity. "Still breathing, Skyfallen?" she whispered, voice dry as the air itself. Rowan pushed himself up from the damp stone, wrists raw from the sinew cords. "For now, who are you?" "Lyra." She knelt, producing a small vial from her sleeve. Clear liquid, precious. She tipped one drop onto his cracked lips. Cool, sweet. He almost moaned. "Disgraced scholar, former keeper of the archives. They say I read too much, questioned too much." Her fingers trembled as she worked a hidden blade against his bonds. "The council wants you drowned at sunrise. I can't let that happen." "Why?" He flexed his freed hands, blood rushing back in pins and needles. Outside footsteps echoed, guards changing shifts. "Because you saved those children." Lyra's glow flickered, faint veins under her skin pulsing like distant lightning. "And because, well, I think you're the key to something bigger." She glanced at the door. "But we have to move, now." Before he could ask more, the door burst wider. A taller figure strode in, armor of polished abalone plates, spear slung across her back. Her face was stern, unreadable, hair braided with salt crystals that caught the light. "Commander Ione," the silent warrior from the crowd. Rowan recognized the set of her shoulders, the way she'd watched without blinking. "Scholar Lyra," Ione said, voice low, controlled. "The council commutes the sentence. The outsider lives, under my watch." Her eyes, storm gray, met Rowan's. No warmth, but no cruelty either. "You will not die today. Yet." Lyra stiffened. "Commuted? On what grounds?" "Heresy requires study." Ione's lips twitched, almost a smile. "He is to aid in the filtration repairs. Your project, Lyra, under guard." She stepped closer, chains clinking in her hand, lighter than the sinew but still binding. Try to run, Skyfallen, and the Sea Mother claims you herself. Rowan met her gaze. And if I help, Ione snapped the chains around his wrists. Then you earn your drops, like the rest of us. They marched him out, up spiral ramps, through corridors where the air grew thicker, heavier with the scent of brine and desperation. Ione led, spear tapping rhythmically. Lyra followed, whispering urgent translations of the murals they passed, scenes of the Sea Mother rising in wrath, cities swallowed for greed. They teach us the drought is punishment, she murmured, for taking more than our share. Rowan's chains clinked softly. On my world, we call that politics. Ione shot him a look, sharp, warning, but she said nothing. They descended into the lower tiers. Here the coral walls wept condensation, but barely. Families huddled around stone bowls, licking dew from the rims. Children pressed their faces to the walls, tongues out, catching trickles that evaporated almost as fast as they formed. An old man wrung a rag over a cup. 3 drops. He sipped one, saved the rest for a feverish toddler. Rowan's throat ached in sympathy. He'd flown rescue missions through dust storms on arid colonies, dropped water pods to refugees. But this was engineered suffering. A woman approached Ione, bowl extended. Commander, please, my ration. Tomorrow, Ione said, voice flat, but her hand hesitated on her pouch. She dropped a crystal spoon of water into the bowl. The woman wept. Ione's jaw tightened. Lyra pulled Rowan aside into a shadowed alcove where filtration pipes, ancient, crusted with salt, groaned under pressure. Look, she said, pointing to a valve leaking a thin stream. Guards rationed it, drop by drop, into urns. This is all we get. The upper tiers, they bathe. Gardens bloom. Fountains sing. Her voice cracked. But down here, we pray for storms that never come. Rowan knelt, running fingers over the pipe. Metal beneath the coral casing, old but not primitive. This isn't natural wear. See the scoring? Controlled corrosion. Someone's throttling the flow. Lyra's eyes widened. You understand machines? Ex-rescue pilot. I've patched worse in 0G. He traced a seam. Your holy veins. They're pumps, geothermal maybe, drawing from deep aquifers. Blasphemy, Ione growled from behind them. But she didn't stop him. Her spear rested against the wall now. The council says the Sea Mother withholds her gift. We must atone. Lyra turned to her, voice soft but fierce. And if the mother isn't angry, Ione, if the council lies, I've seen records, sealed archives. Before the great drying, rain fell freely. Rivers ran through Thalis. Then the salt locks appeared, and the rations began. Ione's face paled. You'd risk everything on old scribbles? I'd risk it on truth. Lyra's glow brightened with passion. Rowan can prove it. Help us access the underlevels. The main conduit runs beneath the citadel. No. Ione's hand went to her spear. Forbidden. The echoes down there. They drive men mad. Water thieves go in, come out marked. She touched her own arm where faint crystal patterns glimmered under the skin, like scars but glowing. Rowan stood slowly. I've heard worse echoes in burning shuttles. Let me see. Ione hesitated, faith warring with doubt, visible in the twitch of her eye, the clench of her fist. Finally, one look, then back to your cell. But Lyra was already prying at a grate, hidden behind vines of dried kelp. It creaked open, revealing stairs spiraling down into darkness. A cool breath wafted up, moist, almost sweet. Strange echoes rose, a low thrum, like breathing, and something else, a whisper or water, moving. Rowan stepped forward. Chains or no, he had to know. Lyra slipped in first, lantern raised. Ione followed, spear ready. Rowan between them, reason and faith, pulling him deeper into the forbidden dark. The stairs spiraled deeper, each step slick with condensation that beaded like sweat on the coral walls. Lyra's lantern cast wavering shadows, illuminating veins of bioluminescent algae that pulsed in slow rhythm, matching the low thrum rising from below. Rowan's chains clinked softly, a constant reminder of his captivity, But the air grew cooler, moister, almost hopeful. Ione brought up the rear, her spear gripped tight, eyes darting to every echo. They emerged into a cavern vast enough to swallow the citadel above. Pillars of living coral alloy, fused organic and metal, glowing faintly, supported a ceiling lost in darkness. Massive conduits snaked across the floor, thick as tree trunks, humming with restrained power. Water moved inside them. Rowan could hear it, a muffled rush, begging for release. This is no natural formation, he breathed, kneeling beside one. The surface was warm, alive, flexing subtly under his touch. Lyra's glow brightened with awe. Our ancestors built this? Not the Sea Mother's gift, but ours? Aine's voice was tight. Blasphemy. These are the holy veins. Touch them, and the marks come. She rolled up her sleeve, revealing faint salt crystal patterns etching her forearm, like frost on glass. Water thieves. They sneak down here. Come back changed, mad. Rowan ignored her, tracing the conduit to a junction where it met a circular seal. Crystalline salt, veined with conductive threads that sparked faintly. Ancient tech, but familiar. Electro seals, salt as electrolyte, powered by geothermal currents. He pressed his palm against it. A low buzz vibrated through his bones. These aren't divine. They're locks. Someone's keying the flow, rationing it from up top. Lyra gasped, lantern trembling. The council? They control the drought? Looks like. Rowan's mind raced. Rescue ops on failing colonies. Sabotage water recyclers. Same game. Different planet. Break one, and we flood the lower tiers. Prove it's not a curse. Ione stepped forward, spear lowering. You'd risk the wrath. A distant chant echoed, cutting her off. Soft footsteps on stone. They ducked behind a pillar. Lyra extinguished the lantern, plunging them into the conduit's faint glow. Deeper in the cavern, carvings covered a wall. Ancient, weathered, but clear under the pulsing light. Lyra crept closer, fingers brushing the etchings. Figures in robes, surrounding a central spiral. An outsider, taller, unmarked, offering a glowing heart. Words in old script, rite of confluence. Unbound blood to shatter the veil, merge with the breath below. Her whisper carried. A ritual, to open the seals, but it needs someone not of ore, an outsider's life force. She turned to Rowan, eyes wide. You, he swallowed. Figures, always the crash lander. Ione's breath hitched. Lies, the council would never. But the chant grew louder. From a side tunnel, figures emerged. Council of brine members, robes heavy with salt embroidery, faces masked in crystal. They circled a smaller seal, smaller than the others, but central, humming louder. The lead elder raised a staff tipped with conductive pearl. We beseech the Sea Mother, she intoned, voice echoing. Grant us your measured breath. Withhold the storm. Sustain the faithful. They inserted crystalline keys into slots around the seal. A pulse, electric, controlled. The conduit dimmed slightly. Somewhere above, a fountain in the upper tiers would trickle a bit more, while below, dew collectors went dry. Rowan's fists clenched. They're not praying. They're throttling it. Lyra's hand found his. The deception? Generations. Ione watched, frozen. Her spear trembled, faith cracking like thin ice. The ritual ended. The council withdrew, footsteps fading. Silence returned, broken only by the thrum, stronger now, almost pleading. Rowan approached the central seal. If I can bypass... Don't, Ione warned, but her voice lacked conviction. He touched it anyway. Sparks danced. The salt crystals warmed, then cracked. A hairline fracture spidered across the surface. The thrum became a gasp. Water, pure, sweet, burst forth in a sudden jet, spraying the cavern with mist that tasted like rain. It wasn't a flood, just a breath. A living exhale. The ground trembled. Echoes rose. Not mad whispers, but a deep, rhythmic inhale from the abyss below. Ione staggered back, salt marks on her skin glowing brighter. What? What have we done? The mist from the ruptured seal curled around their ankles like a living thing, cool and insistent, carrying the faint scent of deep geothermal springs, minerals that had never seen the ration light of Thales above. Droplets beaded on Rowan's skin, each one a tiny rebellion against the drought that had defined this world for generations. He licked one from his lip, pure, unfiltered life, and felt it slide down his throat like a promise. The thrum beneath the cavern floor had shifted since the crack, no longer a distant heartbeat, but a conscious rhythm. Inhale, pause, exhale, as if whatever lay below was listening. Lyra dropped to her knees beside the fractured crystal, lantern trembling in one hand, while the other traced the newly revealed lines of script. The rupture had washed away centuries of salt dust, exposing deeper etchings that glowed faintly under the conduit's bioluminescence. Her breath came in shallow bursts, glow veins pulsing in frantic Morse along her collarbones. It's, it's all here, she whispered, voice cracking with the weight of forbidden knowledge. The rite isn't supplication, it's engineering, a bioelectric bridge. But the conduit, she swallowed hard, eyes lifting to Rowan's. It demands an outsider's life, not death exactly, but mergence. Your neural pattern, your blood chemistry, unbound by Auror's saline lineage. You'd become the key, the living catalyst to overload the salt lattice. Rowan crouched beside her, chains clinking softly against the stone. The mist soaked into the metal links, loosening the corrosion. He studied the spiral diagram etched into the floor, ancient symbols that looked less like prayer and more like circuit schematics. Neural interface, he muttered, rescue pilot instincts kicking in. I've linked with failing shuttles mid-crash, rerouted power through my suit's bioport. Same principle. Risky as hell, but... He met her gaze, steady despite the knot in his gut. If it ends the lie, if one drop of my blood buys an ocean for your people, sign me up. Lyra's fingers brushed his wrist, feather-light, as if touching something sacred or fragile. Rowan, the text warns of resonance feedback. Your mind could fracture. You might not come back whole. Her voice dropped to a hush. Or at all. He exhaled slowly, the sound swallowed by the cavern's vastness. Memories flickered, crash sites on arid moons, children pulled from wreckage. The way their small hands clung to his flight suit like he was a god. He'd never hesitated then. I've stared down black holes and failing engines, he said, a weary smile tugging his lips. This? Just another rescue. Only this time, the victim's a planet. Behind them, Ione paced the perimeter of the ruptured seal, spear tip scraping sparks from the coral alloy floor. Each step was measured, deliberate, but her shoulders betrayed her, hunched as if carrying the weight of every oath she'd sworn. The salt crystal marks on her forearms had begun to spread, thin filaments crawling toward her elbows like frost on glass, glowing in sync with the breath below. She stopped abruptly, staring at her own skin as if it belonged to a stranger. This cannot be, she murmured, voice raw. The Sea Mother provides. She withholds to teach humility. My mother died praying for one more drop, and the council said it was her greed. Her spear clattered against a conduit, the sound sharp in the humid silence. But this breath, it's alive. Not wrath, not punishment, just choked. Rowan rose, mist swirling around his boots. That's the point, Ione. Your council isn't guarding faith. They're running a scam with better tech. He gestured to the massive conduits snaking overhead, their surfaces flexing subtly like muscle under skin. Geothermal pumps, bioelectric seals, probably electromagnetic damping fields to control condensation cycles planet-wide. Classic resource hoarding. I've seen it on colony worlds, warlords throttling water recyclers to keep tribes in line. Ione's head snapped toward him, eyes storm gray and fractured. You speak of the divine as machinery? Divine's just a word for what we don't understand yet. Rowan stepped closer, voice softening. Help us finish this, or walk away, but don't stand in the middle while kids lick walls for moisture. She flinched as if struck. Memories assaulted her, her little brother's cracked lips, the way he'd whispered, Commander Ione will bring the rain before fever took him. She'd risen through the ranks on that grief, vowing to protect the system that failed him. Now the system itself was the failure. Her knuckles whitened on the spear shaft. I need to see the right, all of it, before I choose. Lyra was already moving, gathering crystalline shards from the rupture, each fragment humming with residual charge. She arranged them in the spiral pattern etched into the floor, matching the wall carvings precisely. The air thickened, ozone and salt, as faint arcs of electricity danced between the pieces. Positions, she said, voice steadying into scholar's focus. Rowan at the nexus, I'll channel the chant, amplify the resonance. Ione, you stabilize the outer ring. Your salt marks, they're conductive. You're part of the circuit now. Ione hesitated, then knelt at the perimeter, spear laid across her knees like a barrier she wasn't sure she wanted to maintain. The mist condensed on the crystals, forming tiny rivers that traced the spiral inward. Lyra began the chant, ancient syllables rolling off her tongue like waves on a forgotten shore. The conduits responded, glowing brighter, the thrums sinking to her cadence. Inhale, chant. Exhale. Rowan knelt at the center, pressing both palms to the main seal. The surface was warm, almost feverish, pulsing against his skin. Bioelectric feedback tingled up his arms, familiar from neural links in his flight helmet. He closed his eyes, breathing with the rhythm below. In, out. Visions flickered, not his own. Vast underwater caverns, a colossal form coiled in slumber. Gills the size of city blocks, filtering brine into fresh vapor, exhaled as clouds that should have seeded rain across ore. But nets, electromagnetic webs, choked the rhythm, forcing shallow breaths, rationed condensation. The creature wasn't angry, it was exhausted. Rowan? Lyra's voice, distant. The resonance is building. Hold steady. He nodded, sweat mixing with mist on his brow. Energy surged, his heartbeat syncing with the seals. Cracks spidered outward from his touch points, salt lattice fracturing under the overload. Ione's salt marks flared painfully bright. She gasped, gripping her arms. It burns, but I feel it. The breath. It's grateful. Then conch horns. Distant at first, then deafening, as they echoed down hidden stairwells. Boots on stone, dozens, hundreds. The council had traced the rupture's energy spike. Heretics in the veins! The lead elder's voice boomed, amplified by her staff. Guards flooded the cavern, coral armor glinting under emergency lanterns, spears forming a bristling wall. Behind them, council members in salt-embroidered robes, faces masked in crystalline veils. The outsider's interference has angered the mother. Seize them. His blood will appease the storm. Lyra's chant faltered. A guard lunged, spear aimed for her throat. Rowan surged up, intercepting with his chain-wrapped forearm, metal clanging against coral. Pain flared, but he held. Keep chanting, he roared. Ione rose slowly, spear in hand. Guards hesitated, recognizing their commander. The elder pointed. Ione, stand aside. This is treason. Ione's gaze flicked to Rowan, to Lyra, to the glowing spiral now crackling with unbound energy. Her conscience screamed, loyalty and truth colliding like storm fronts. No, she said, voice breaking but firm. This ends. She spun, spear whipping in a defensive arc, parrying the first wave. But there were too many. Guards pressed in, forcing the trio back toward the seal. Lyra resumed the chant, words tumbling faster, desperate. Rowan grabbed a crystalline shard, using it like a multi-tool to pry at the seal's core, sparks flying. A guard tackled Ione from the side. She went down hard, spear skittering away. Another raised a blade over Rowan. Lyra screamed the final syllable. The spiral ignited. Energy surged inward, funneling through Rowan's palms. The main seal shattered, but guards closed the circle, spears inches from their throats. Cornered against the pulsing nexus, ritual climaxing in a blaze of light. The ground trembled violently. The breath below roared. The rite's climax hung in the air like a held breath. Lyra's final syllable echoing off the cavern walls as blue-green light erupted from the shattered seal. It wasn't illumination, it was life. A tidal wave of luminescence flooded every shadow, every crevice, turning the underlevels into an underwater cathedral. The light pulsed in rhythm with the thrum below, now a thunderous heartbeat that vibrated through bone and stone alike. Rowan's vision blurred from the biofeedback surge still crackling in his nerves. His palms, pressed to the seal moments ago, tingled with residual energy as if he'd touched a live wire to a star. Guards froze mid-lunge, spears forgotten. The council elder's staff slipped from her fingers, clattering into the rising mist. Tremors intensified. Crack. Crack. The ground splitting not in destruction, but in revelation. The central floor parted like theater curtains. Coral alloy hinges groaning under millennia of strain. From the chasm rose a pressure wave of warm, sweet air, carrying the scent of rain on untouched soil. Water, pure, glowing, cascaded upward in defiance of gravity, defying the drought that had choked Thalos for generations. Then she emerged, not in fury, but in weary majesty. The Sea Mother, colossal, luminous, a living continent of flesh and light. Her body unfurled from the abyss in slow, deliberate coils, tendrils longer than city avenues, membranes stretched between them like solar sails, veined with bioluminescence that shifted from deep indigo to vibrant turquoise. Gill slits the size of citadel gates flared open, exhaling clouds of vapor that condensed instantly into mist, then droplets, then rain within the cavern. Her skin wasn't scale or hide, but a symbiotic tapestry, coral polyps, algae blooms, microscopic organisms working in harmony to filter brine into fresh. Eyes, ancient, galaxy deep, opened one by one, each iris a swirling nebula of gold and emerald, fixing on the tiny figures with a sorrow that transcended language. Lyra collapsed to her knees in the ankle-deep water, lantern extinguished by the glow. "She's beautiful," she whispered, voice breaking. "Not a god, a mother." Rowan staggered back, resonance from the right linking him to her neural web. Flashes assaulted him. Eons ago, Or's ancestors discovering the juvenile organism in geothermal vents, its natural respiration cycle desalinating oceans, exhaling vapor that seeded planet-wide rain. They'd nurtured it at first, guided its growth into the seabed, but greed crept in. Councils passed wove the first nets, electromagnetic fields to pace its breath, harvest the output. Generations refined the enslavement, salt locks to throttle flow, rituals to mask control as divinity. The drought wasn't punishment, it was battery farming. Ione burst through the stun guard line then, spear a blur of motion. She'd vanished in the initial surge, but now she fought like judgment incarnate. Salt marks on her arms blazing white-hot, conductive pathways, amplifying her strength. She disarmed 3 guards in a single spin, hurling their spears into the chasm. "Stand down," she bellowed, voice raw with betrayal. "This isn't wrath, it's agony." The elder recovered, snatching her staff from the water. "Fools, the mother tests us." She slammed the crystal tip into a hidden console. Panels irised open along the cavern walls, dozens, hundreds. Cables erupted like serpents, conductive threads woven with salt crystals, latching onto the creature's tendrils with magnetic clamps. Electromagnetic pulses surged. The beast convulsed, gills slamming shut mid-exhale. Vapor output choked to a trickle. The cavern's newborn rain faltered to drips. "Activate full harvest," the elder commanded. Pumps along the conduit's word to life, siphoning the forced breath upward, destined for upper-tier reservoirs, fountains that would flow while lower tiers licked walls. Guards rallied, forming ranks. "Subdue the heretics. The outsider's right has provoked her." Rowan dodged a spear thrust, grabbing a loose cable. The shock nearly floored him. Raw power, enough to light a colony ship. "They're not worshipping her," he shouted over the hum. "They're milking her." He jammed the cable into a ruptured conduit node, shorting a section. Sparks showered. One net segment went slack. The creature inhaled sharply, a single unrestricted breath flooding the cavern knee-deep in sweet water. Lyra scrambled to an exposed control dais, water sloshing around her robes. Ancient interfaces, coral keys, crystalline dials, glowed under her frantic fingers. Feedback loops, she muttered, Scholar's mind racing. If we reverse the polarity, she twisted a dial. Another net flickered, loosening. Ion held the front line, spear-parrying blows, but guards pressed harder. One blade grazed her arm. Salt marks flared, cauterizing the wound instantly. She roared, kicking the attacker back. For every drop you stole, her voice cracked. Grief for her mother, her brother, every rationed child. She wasn't fighting for the council anymore. She was fighting against them. The creature's tendril brushed Rowan gently, sharing a pulse. Pain, centuries, free. He saw it all. The net's evolution, electromagnetic damping fields planet-wide, controlling condensation, creating artificial scarcity. Upper tiers bathed in excess. Lower tiers prayed to a lie. Humanity versus nature, distilled into cables and greed. Overload the core nodes, Rowan yelled, resonance guiding him. He and Lyra worked in tandem, she rerouting from the dais, he prying at harness points with scavenged shards. Ione cleared paths, spear a whirlwind. Water rose to their waists, warm and alive, carrying the creature's bioluminescent shed skin like stars. The elder slammed her staff again. Maximum suppression! Nets constricted to breaking point, fields intensifying to white hot. The beast thrashed, tendrils smashing conduits, pillars crumbling. Cavern walls cracked upward, fissures racing toward Thales' foundations. Overhead, the citadel groaned. Dust rained down. Pumps screamed in overload. Feedback looped wildly. Energy arcing between nets, salt threads melting. The creature's roar shook the world, a primal release after eons of chains. Water surged higher, chest deep, neck deep, guards fleeing up stairwells in panic. Rowan clung to a floating conduit fragment, the beast's eye locking with his. Thank you, but the nets glowed critical, on the verge of catastrophic burst. If they snapped unchecked, the backlash would drown Thales in minutes. The overload screamed through the nets like a dying star. Electromagnetic fields fracturing into wild arcs that lit the churning water in strobes of white-hot fury. Rowan's grip on the sea mother's tendril was iron, resonance pulsing between them, her agony a mirror to his own racing heart. Every choked inhale she managed sent shockwaves through his chest. Every suppressed exhale stole his breath. The cavern was a cauldron now, water at neck level and rising, glowing with her bioluminescence in the sparks of failing tech. Core node, he gasped, voice barely cutting the roar. At her heart, final seal. It's the anchor for every net. Shatter it. And she breaks free. Lyra fought the current from the crumbling dais, robes plastered to her frame, glow veins flickering like emergency beacons. Water sloshed over the ancient controls, but her fingers, Scholar's precision honed by desperation, pried open a power conduit. Salt water hissed against exposed circuits. Feedback loops inverting. Umora, she shouted back, twisting crystalline dials with one hand while bracing against a conduit with the other. Give me 30 or 20 seconds. I'll surge the resonance through the right's spiral. Amplify your strike. Ione made her choice in that heartbeat. No more wavering, no divided soul. The commander who'd once enforced rations now shattered them. Salt marks on her arms blazed incandescent, conductive pathways supercharging her movements. She dove headlong into the fray, spear a silver blur through the foam. Clear the path, she bellowed, voice cracking with centuries of suppressed rage. A guard lunged, former subordinate, and she parried with bone-jarring force, spear shaft cracking his coral helm. Another cable junction sparked nearby. She lanced it clean through, net segment slumping, lifeless into the water. For every drop stolen, for every child who thirsted. Foikin, guards turned on her in confusion and betrayal, but she fought like a force of nature reborn, carving a corridor through the chaos straight to Rowan. Go! I hold the line! Rowan nodded once, gratitude flashing in his eyes, then kicked off, tendril propelling him downward through the widening chasm. The Sea Mother guided him, a gentle coil around his waist, sharing visions and pulses. The final seal, a pulsating salt crystal orb fused to her underbelly, cables burrowing like parasites into living tissue. Centuries of greed etched there, scars from initial capture, refinements by each successive council. He felt her exhaustion, the way forced shallow breaths had stunted her growth, turned a planetary nurturer into a rationed battery. With the rights shard clenched in his fist, still humming from Lyra's chant, he swam deeper, lungs burning, resonance sustaining him where air failed. The core loomed, massive, veined with failing energy, nets converging like a web's heart. Guards tried to follow, but Ione's spear whirled overhead, holding the surface. "Not one step," she roared. A tendril swept low, batting intruders aside with careful precision, protective, not destructive. Rowan reached it, pressed the shard to the orb's surface. Energy surged both ways. His outsider essence the final key. Crack! The seal didn't just break. It imploded in a vortex of light and vapor, shards dissolving into harmless mist. The backlash ripped through every net anchor planet-wide. The Sea Mother inhaled, deep, unfettered, a breath that had waited generations. Nets tore free in explosive chain reactions, cables whipping through water like severed arteries, electromagnetic fields collapsing in thunderclaps. She rose fully then, body uncoiling to fill the cavern's vastness, tendrils arching like cathedral vaults. Her roar wasn't wrath, it was jubilation. Freedom, at last. Vapor exploded from her gills in clouds that condensed into torrents, sweet rain falling even underwater in impossible sheets. The cavern's ceiling couldn't hold. Fissures raced upward like lightning in reverse, coral alloy buckling under the pressure of renewal. Water erupted through every crack, every sealed vein, tidal waves bursting into Thalas above with the force of a world reborn. The citadel shuddered from its foundations. Towers of pink and white coral cracked like ancient eggshells but didn't crumble entirely. They drank. Natural waters returned in glorious excess, geothermal springs gushing from depths, her exhalations seeding storms that darken Or's skies for the first time in centuries. Clouds boiled overhead, heavy with real rain, lightning now a celebration rather than a curse. In the central plaza, chaos reigned. The Council of Brine clung to their elevated dais, salt-embroidered robes whipping in the wind of incoming waves. The elder raised her staff high, crystal tip sparking futilely. "This is the Mother's wrath," she shrieked, voice drowning in the roar. "Atone for your sins. The outsider has—" A wall of glowing sea crashed through the pearl gates, sweet and unstoppable. It swept the dais clean. Elders tumbled into the flood, robes tangling in debris, crystalline mass shattering. One by one, they vanished beneath the waves, greed's architects silenced by the very element they'd hoarded. No divine judgment, just consequence. Lower tiers flooded first and fastest, but the water was pure, warm with geothermal heat, alive with the mother's glow. Families who'd licked dew from walls now floated in streams, mouths open in shock as they drank deeply for the first time. Lyra surfaced amid the swirling ruins of a collapsed ramp, her lantern long lost but her internal glow brighter than ever. She spotted them immediately, the luminous children from the beach, the ones Rowan had pulled from the storm. The boy clung to a floating coral shard, sister beside him, both wide-eyed as water rose. "Hold on," Lyra called, swimming with powerful strokes. She lashed debris together with kelp cords, improvised rafts born of scholars' ingenuity. One by one, she hauled children aboard. The dew lickers, the ration cures, tiny hands grasping hers. "Breathe it in," she urged, cupping water to a trembling girl's lips. "It's sweet. The mother gives freely now." The child sipped, coughed, then laughed, a sound like breaking chains. Higher up, Ione emerged onto the mid-tier spirals, water lapping at her boots but receding as quickly as it rose. Her spear doubled as a staff, salt marks guiding survivors like living torches. "To the spires," she commanded, voice carrying over the din. Panicked crowds surged around her, former enforcers dropping weapons to help, citizens shedding superstition like old skins. She hauled an elderly couple up a crumbling stair, then a mother with infant pressed to her chest. "Higher ground. The flood cleanses, not destroys." Life versus the destruction humanity had invited. Greed's towering inequality now leveled by equality's tide. A guard, once her subordinate, hesitated, then joined her, lifting a child to safety. "Commander, the council?" "Gone," Ione said, no regret. "We guard the living now." The waves engulfed Thales in deliberate phases, the mother's tendrils guiding where brute force might harm. Lower quarters were scoured clean of stagnation, filled with flowing streams that carved new channels. Middle tiers saw fountains overflow into public basins, no spoons needed. Upper gardens, once exclusive, became communal lakes, fish leaping in joy. Coral structures groaned, adapted, healed, drinking deep after centuries of thirst, bioluminescent polyps blooming anew. Rain fell planet-wide, Or's skies weeping in release. Storms circled Thalia's, but spared total annihilation, her breath moderating the deluge. Destruction and renewal intertwined. Old walls fell to make way for rivers, but the city's bones held, reborn. The storm peaked in a final, glorious crescendo, lightning illuminating the mother's silhouette against the clouds, then subsided as gently as a lullaby. Skies cleared to a soft, perpetual glow. Waters receded into newly carved bays and aquifers, leaving pools, streams, waterfalls where none had existed. The air hummed with moisture, sweet and abundant. Survivors emerged blinking into the new world. Children splashed in puddles. Adults wept, drinking from their hands. But Rowan, nowhere on the surface, swept into the chasm with the mother's triumphant rise, vanished beneath the glowing waves that now lapped gently at Thales's reformed shores. The first true dawn of the new Ore broke gentle and unhurried, sunlight filtering through clouds that no longer hoarded their moisture, but released it in soft, steady mists. The reformed shores of Thales stretch wider than memory, black volcanic glass softened by layers of pearl-white sand carried in from the flood's gentle retreat. Waves lapped with a rhythm that hadn't existed for generations. Inhale, exhale, a deep, resonant breath rising from the ocean floor itself, stirring the surface into ripples of sweet, crystalline foam. The water had transformed overnight, no longer the thick, jealous brine that demanded rationed spoons and cracked lips, but clear, pure, carrying the faint mineral tang of geothermal springs and the subtle glow of symbiotic life. It tasted of rain on parched earth, of promises kept after centuries of lies. Search parties had fanned out at first light, conch horns calling across the bays, voices raw from a night spent shouting Rowan's name into the receding dark. Lyra led one group along the eastern beach, her robes still damp from the Academy's makeshift infirmary, glow veins pulsing with anxious light. She scanned every tangle of kelp, every shard of coral debris, heart clenched tighter with each empty wave. "He has to be here," she murmured, more prayer than certainty. The resonance, it linked him too deeply to just vanish. Then, a shape, half buried in a nest of glowing seaweed, chest rising in shallow, stubborn breaths. Lyra's lantern, replaced with a bioluminescent orb, cast its light on familiar features. Rowan, bruised and battered, resonance scars tracing faint, pulsing lines across his forearms like the mother's own veins. She dropped to her knees, sand clinging to her wet hems. "Rowan!" Her hands trembled as she brushed kelp from his face, turning him gently. Salt crust flaked from his skin. A cut on his forehead had already begun to heal in the sweet water's embrace. His eyes fluttered open, storm gray meeting her luminous gold. A weak grin tugged his lips despite the pain. "Told you, rescue pilots don't quit easy." His voice was hoarse, but the dry sarcasm, soft, affectionate, cut through her fear like sunlight. He coughed, spitting seawater that tasted impossibly fresh. "The mother. She carried me out, gentle like a cradle." Ione arrived moments later, spear planted in the sand like a victory standard, a cluster of survivors trailing her. Families clutching salvaged belongings, children wide-eyed at the endless drinkable sea. Her salt marks glowed steadily now, no longer erratic flares of doubt but calm beacons. She knelt opposite Lyra, strong hands checking Rowan's pulse. "The outsider returns," she said, voice thick with relief and something deeper, respect forged in floodwaters. The mother spared you, guided you. You're part of the breath now. Word spread faster than the morning tide. Conchorns relayed the news up the rebuilt spirals of Thalys, voices overlapping in joy and wonder. Crowds gathered in the central plaza, transformed from a ration dais into a communal basin where waterfalls cascaded freely from every level, no barriers, no tears. Streams carved playful paths through what had been cracked stone, fish darting in newly formed pools. Elders who'd survived the flood by clinging to upper spires muttered in corners, fingers tracing old prayer beads, whispering of omens and the sea mother's unpredictable wrath. Abundance is temptation, one hissed. The outsider brought the storm. Mark my words, it will return. But the children, the luminous ones Rowan had pulled from the waves, now joined by dozens more, splashed in the basins, cupping water to their mouths, laughing as it spilled without measure. A former guard, coral armor discarded for simple kelp weaves, raised a conch to his lips. The blast silenced the murmurs. This era of fear and falsehood ends here, he declared, voice carrying over the splashes. We name it the first thirstless season, a time when every drop is gift, not guilt. Cheers erupted raw and unrestrained, echoing across Orr's reborn skies. Hands linked in circles, old and young, upper and lower. Old beliefs clung like barnacles, whispers in shadowed alcoves, but the world itself rebuked them. Fountains bubbled for all, rivers ran through streets once dusty with thirst. No spoons needed, no cues, no privileged gardens hoarding the flow. Lyra wasted no time claiming the Citadel's heart for truth. The Water Academy rose from the archive's flooded halls, walls now lined with holographic projections from salvaged crystals, carvings of the rite, diagrams of conduits, the mother's breath cycles mapped in glowing lines. Scholars gathered at dawn, once disgraced or hidden, now revered as architects of the new order. Lyra stood at the center, robes exchanged for practical weaves, voice steady as she addressed wide-eyed students. The luminous children front and center, quills poised over fresh kelp paper. Knowledge is our conduit now, she intoned, projecting a model of geothermal flows. We monitor the mother's breath, gentle taps, never nets, cloud seeding aligned with her exhalations, not forced. Sustainable cycles, draw what we need, give back in coral reefs and algae blooms. Debates sparked, ethics of off-world tech, limits of harvest, but no fear. Old texts, yellowed with lies, fed ritual fires in the courtyard. New chronicles emerged, Lyra's hand inking the fall of the council, the rise of understanding. Ignorance was the true curse, she told a skeptical elder. Truth quenches forever. Out on the rebuilt docks, piers extended into bays where the mother's tendrils occasionally brushed the surface. Irene claimed her domain, guardian of the free seas, she called it. Her salt marks had stabilized into intricate patterns, glowing softly as she led the first class of young divers into the shallows. Spear replaced by multifunctional harpoon tools, sensors for breath pulses, graphs for symbiotic corals. Respect the rhythm, she instructed, voice carrying the weight of reformed oaths. Youths, former ration cures, now sleek in woven suits, plunged after her, learning to read the mother's pulses like sailors' red winds. Plant here to filter excess brine. Monitor there for overdraw. No more enslavement. We protect her vitality. She sustains ours in balance. Old soldiers joined willingly, armor melted down for tools, oaths remade to the living ocean. A diver surfaced with a glowing polyp. It's, singing, he gasped. Ion smiled. Rare, genuine. That's harmony. Rowan, scars from the right fading into faint, pulsing glow lines that matched the natives, chose to stay. No shuttle to repair, no stars calling louder than this world's need. He worked tirelessly, sketching designs on coral slates with off-world precision fused to local ingenuity. Fair water systems rose across Thalys, aqueducts branching equally to every home, sensors in basins gauging communal need, not individual status. No more hoarding, he explained to a gathering of builders, demonstrating a valve that's self-regulated based on the mother's breath data. Feedback loops draw excess, and it alerts the academy. Conflicts simmered, holdouts in remote spires praying to absent councils, fearing abundance as the ultimate temptation, hoarding clay cups just in case. Rowan mediated with weary patience, a child once offering him a brimming cup. He drank deep, eyes closing in gratitude. See? The world provides when we stop strangling it. Yet as the sun dipped low, painting the horizon in fiery ambers, Rowan stood alone on the outermost shore. The sea stretched endless, sweet waves kissing his feet. Old beliefs faded in the daily miracles. Rain without storms, rivers without locks. But the reborn world still whispered challenges, balancing growth, honoring the breath. A pulse stirred the water, deep, rhythmic. The sea mother's light glimmered far out, tendrils breaching subtly in greeting, eyes like distant stars watching with intelligent warmth. Another pulse, partnership, begins, cooperation, thrives. Hints of future harmony, divers communing with her young, off-world tech monitoring without harm, humanity and living ocean weaving a shared destiny. Aure's new chapter unfurled in the waves, vast and luminous.